First visitor. People always ask me why our family never advertises the summer camp anymore. We keep the website simple, avoid social media, and rarely post photos of the property. The truth is, there's a reason for that, a reason I've only shared with a handful of people. Even now, years later, I still wake up in the middle of the night whenever I hear tapping on a window. Because one summer, someone came to our camp, someone wearing an owl mask, and I'm convinced that if I had unlocked that door, I wouldn't be here telling this story. My family has owned a summer camp deep in the forests of northern Pennsylvania for more than 40 years. It isn't one of those luxury camps with swimming pools and fancy cabins. It's quiet, just a handful of wooden cabins surrounded by miles of thick forest. Parents send their kids there to disconnect from technology and spend time in nature. Most summers are exactly the same. Kids laughing, campfires, fishing, hiking, nothing unusual. As my parents got older, I slowly took over running the camp, and by the summer this happened, I was handling almost everything myself. We hosted 3 sessions every year, each lasting 12 days. And between sessions, all the counselors went home for the weekend, while I stayed behind to clean cabins, organize supplies, and prepare for the next group. Normally, I enjoyed those quiet weekends. That year, I learned to hate them. The final morning of the second session started normally. Parents arrived to pick up their children. Suitcases covered the front porch, and everyone was saying goodbye. Then one girl, around 13 years old, walked over to me. She looked exhausted, not scared, just completely drained. I smiled and asked if she had enjoyed camp. She shrugged and said, "I'll be happy to sleep in my own room tonight." That surprised me. She'd been one of our happiest campers all week. I asked if something had happened, and she hesitated before answering. "I didn't sleep much." "Why not?" She looked toward the woods before quietly saying, "Because the owl man kept visiting my window." I almost laughed, not to be rude, but because it sounded exactly like something kids would invent to scare each other. She nodded and said he tapped on the glass, that the first night she thought she was dreaming, that he was standing outside her cabin, that he waved at her and she hid under her blanket until she fell asleep. The second night he came back, and this time he talked. A chill ran through me. "What did he say?" She repeated the sentence without hesitation. "He said, 'It's cold out here. Please let me in.'" She said she refused, and the figure lowered its head, made a strange whining sound, then slowly disappeared into the trees. She didn't seem frightened while telling me, only tired, like someone who hadn't slept for days. I convinced myself it was simply an overactive imagination. Kids hear ghost stories around campfires all the time, and sometimes they dream about them. That explanation made perfect sense. At least it did back then. By late afternoon, every camper had gone home, and the camp felt unnaturally quiet. I couldn't stop thinking about what that girl had told me. "It's cold out here. Please let me in." I shook it off and got back to work. There were cabins to clean, supplies to count, and paperwork to finish before the next group arrived on Monday. By sunset, the entire camp was empty except for me, and once the sun disappeared behind the trees, the forest became incredibly dark. No streetlights, no nearby houses, only endless woods. Around 9:30 that night, I settled into the main lodge with a cup of coffee. Then I heard a scratching sound on the porch outside. I checked with a flashlight, but found nothing. No animal, no footprints, and strangely, not even the usual insect or frog sounds. About 20 minutes later, the motion sensor floodlight suddenly exploded to life, flooding the windows with light. But again, there was nothing outside. I went back inside, laughed nervously at myself, and tried to focus on my work, but kept glancing at the windows. Around midnight, exhaustion caught up with me, and I dozed off for a few minutes, until a single tap on the glass jolted me awake. It was coming from the sliding glass door overlooking the back deck. Slow, gentle, patient taps, one every few seconds, as if whoever was outside knew I was awake. I stood, took a deep breath, and pulled the curtain aside. Standing less than 6 feet away was a man in ordinary dark clothing, his face covered by a large white owl mask with oversized black eyes staring directly into mine. He lifted one hand and tapped softly on the glass again, then spoke in a calm, almost friendly voice. "Could you let me in?" I couldn't move or speak. He tapped again and said, "Please, it's cold outside." I slowly stepped back and he noticed, tilting his head like an owl studying its prey. Then he reached for the door handle and pulled. It was locked, but he pulled again harder, rattling the glass. I realized that if I had forgotten to lock that door, he would have been standing inside. My hands shook so badly my phone slipped and hit the floor. He looked down, then back at me, and I could feel him smiling behind the mask. I called 911, and before I could finish speaking to the dispatcher, he said, "You shouldn't do that. If you call them, they'll only make me angry." I ignored him and gave the dispatcher my location. He stood still, listening, then without another word, stepped backward off the deck and walked into the darkness, facing me the entire time until the forest swallowed him completely. I waited inside until sheriff's deputies arrived with flashing lights, and they searched every cabin, trail, and storage building, finding nothing, no footprints, no broken branches, no sign anyone had been there. For a moment, I questioned my own sanity. Then a deputy called out. From deeper in the woods, hanging from a low tree branch, was a white owl mask, the same one I'd seen through the glass, with an old backpack sitting beneath it. Inside the backpack was a folded pink t-shirt with Vermont stitched across the front, and wrapped inside the shirt was a massive butcher knife. The deputies collected everything as evidence, but despite searching until sunrise, they never found the man. No fingerprints, no DNA, no witnesses, as if he had simply appeared and vanished again. The next morning, I made the hardest decision of my life and canceled the final summer camp session, telling parents there had been an unexpected maintenance issue. The real reason never became public, because how do you explain that someone wearing an owl mask wandered through a children's summer camp carrying a butcher knife and disappeared without leaving a trace? When I was 21, I worked as a summer camp counselor in a remote mountain camp where my responsibility was to keep 12 campers safe every night. Most nights were quiet until one boy told me he had been hearing footsteps outside their cabin every night. I assumed another camper was playing a prank, but after reminding everyone to stay inside after lights out, the situation became terrifying. Just after midnight, the campers woke up screaming, claiming someone had been standing outside their window. I searched the area with a flashlight, but found nothing except darkness. The following night, I stayed awake to investigate. Around 2 a.m., I heard slow, heavy footsteps outside the cabin. Peeking through the curtain, I saw an unnaturally tall shadow standing silently in the moonlight, staring directly at the cabin. It slowly raised one hand and pointed toward the children's bedroom before silently walking backward into the trees and disappearing into the darkness. I immediately called the camp director, and within minutes, security and local police searched the entire property, but they found no evidence that anyone had been there. Extra security watched over the camp for the rest of the week, and nothing unusual happened again. I believe the nightmare was over until, after camp ended, a maintenance worker discovered dozens of deep footprints leading from the forest to the children's window. Strangely, there were no footprints leading back, only tracks coming toward the cabin. Years have passed, and I still have no explanation for what happened. Maybe it was a person hiding in the woods, or maybe it was something far more sinister. Even today, whenever I hear slow footsteps outside after dark, I never look through the window, because sometimes it's better not to know who or what is waiting outside.